Hello, I'm Marina Kim and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. On April 21st, the Inter-District Economic Court of Almaty reviewed the action against the leaders of the Social Democratic Party Azad, who took part in a rally on April 17th.
The Almaty Inter-District Economic Court was overcrowded on Wednesday when it reviewed the case against several of the opposition activists. Members of the Social Democratic Party Azad came to the courtroom to support their leaders. The participants of the protest on April 17th were searched just a few hours before the hearing, never having time to properly read the case papers. Marjana Spendiyarova is outraged that Kazakh authorities continue to prosecute dissidents.
Методы приема борьбы с инакомыслием в нашей стране не новые.
The dissent control methods used in Kazakhstan are nothing new. Apparently, the wreath-laying is also subject to administrative responsibility. It is depressing that the law enforcement authorities, in particular the personnel of the Bostandyk Police Department, never progressed in their education and professionalism. The hearing did not last long, and just in a couple of hours, the ceremony of laying flowers at the Monument of Independence was equated to a protest rally. Two Azad leaders, Amirjan Kosanov and Jarmakhan Tuyakbay, were issued an administrative warning, while the national patriot Mukhtar Shakhanov was fined for more than $100 just for expressing his civic stand.
In this particular case, the court had to see the classification and interpretation of the word rally. Supposedly they are educated people, but they still follow the authorities' orders so blindly, it is just ridiculous.
On April 17th, about 300 people participated in the rally in Almaty after the decision to do so was taken at the 6th Congress of the Social Democratic Party Azad. The opposition went to the square only after their request for another rally was denied by officials. Interestingly, representatives of other parties and movements that were present at the scene were not served court appointments yet.
Meanwhile, the Medeo District Court of Almaty imposed a ban on all advertising of another oppositional political organization, the still unregistered party Alga.
The advertising scandal began last year when on August 18, 2009, the party Alga registered its organization committee. Therefore, according to the current legislation, the organization had the right for self-promotion in the course of the next 6 months, say party members. However, in autumn, immediately after the registration of the committee, the prosecutor of the Medeo region, Gabit Mukanov, banned the placement of the party symbols on special displays. The prosecutor explained that Alga exceeded the time limits allocated for the organization of the informational and propaganda activities. In response, the leader of Alga, Vladimir Kozlov, said that the decision contradicts the law on political parties. This law was written to specifically prevent the registration of political parties disliked by the authorities.
BTA Bank continues the extrajudicial sale of mortgaged property. On April 21st, Almaty bailiffs visited the Sadikovs family with the eviction notice. The new owners and bank representatives completely ignored the decree prohibiting the confiscation of the only housing, as well as the fact that the property rights are still challenged in the court. The next report has more.
On April 21st, Sadikovs were evicted from their Almaty apartment after the bank confiscated it 2 years ago for mortgage debts. Later, Rana Sadikova proved in court that the deal was done with violations, but the woman's main argument remains that the family simply has no other housing at all. I bought this apartment, invested 85% of the total cost myself and borrowing the rest from the bank. The municipal court cancelled the decision of the first instance, but by that time the bank has already sold the apartment. Now the new owner demands the eviction of the family. I bought this apartment for $108,000 while she paid only $46,000. Do you feel the difference? We bought the apartment back in September 2008 and she continues to present false documents since then. This is ridiculous.
It looks like the authorities play off the buyer against the person with the mortgage problems.
Meanwhile, bailiffs stay neutral to the conflict, just like the leadership of BTA Mortgage, which is directly linked to the conflict. This time the eviction was postponed and the bailiffs promised to return in 2 days.
At the same time, the bank itself seems to be more concerned with its own debts. At the press conference on Wednesday, BTA leadership spoke reluctantly about the situation with mortgage holders.
We have certain priorities, thus we want first to completely deal with the restructuring of all obligations and then proceed to the restructuring of assets. We will deal with this issue taking into account all the circumstances of our borrowers, including their employment situation. BTA Bank leadership has great plans for the future. The board chairman Anvar Saydenov says that after the restructuring, the bank plans to enter the Luxembourg Stock Exchange. Also, the financial institute will issue additional shares, which will be later used to cover the bank's debts. Upon the completion of the restructuring, the shares of the National Fund Samruk Kazana in BTA will be 81.5%, while minority shareholders will own only 1% or even less, against the current 25%. Anvar Saydenov didn't specify whether minority shareholders will be able to exercise the right of the preemption of bank shares as part of the additional issue.
Meanwhile, the restructuring of another financial institution, the Alliance Bank, is discontinued. According to News Kazakhstan, the Financial Control Agency has already notified about it the Financial Court of Almaty. The amount of Alliance debt was decreased from about $4.5 billion to $1,080,000. In the end, 67% of the bank's shares ended up in the fund Samruk Kazana and the remaining 33% in the hands of creditors. It was revealed on Wednesday that another citizen of Kazakhstan was killed during the riots in Kyrgyzstan. The 40-year-old Kartan Karibov died from a traumatic head injury. Meanwhile, the recent clashes in the village of Maevka resulted in the new bloodshed, as 5 people were killed and about 30 injured.
After the forensic examination in Bishkek, the family of the killed were able to retrieve the body. The 16-year-old Ilya Shiyan was shot during the unrest in Kyrgyzstan 2 weeks ago. He will be buried at his native town in the Zhambyl region. Kazakh Foreign Ministry asks all citizens still remaining in Kyrgyzstan to be extra careful at this time. We recommend the citizens of Kazakhstan to exercise maximum caution, taking into account all the latest information and the development of events. In the case of any problems, citizens should contact the consular department in Bishkek.
The Congress of the Trade Union of Mining and Metallurgy Workers was held in Astana on Wednesday. The organization reviewed the results of the 5-year work and set the goals for the next half of the decade, which is expected to become a breakthrough for the industry.
In his report, the trade union chairman Kaidaul Shumelov compared Kazakhstan's economy data with that of the other CIS countries, complained about the global financial crisis caused by capitalists, and listed accomplishments in his field, all the while quoting Nursultan Nazarbayev's speeches.
Kazakhstan is a leader in many respects. The mining and metallurgy sector produces more than a quarter of the entire country's output. It constitutes 20% of the country's total export share and makes 30% of the budget's income.
Nevertheless, the trade union is somewhat concerned about the salaries of the ordinary metallurgists, currently ranked 12th on the list of 34 types of economic activities in the country. The organization intends to double the level of wages in the next 5 years while completely reducing the injury rate. At the moment, miners often forget about safety regulations, and up to 400 accidents still happen every year, which is more than 1 accident per day. Even though employees are often to blame, the union always takes their side anyway.
The groundwork and experience of the Kazakh Trade Union Central Committee and Trade Union Federation are used in other countries. For example, Kazakhstan has the best labor code, some parts of which will be used in other countries.
Мы многое оттуда подчеркнули для того, чтобы использовать в своих государствах.
Employees who were injured at the workplace and permanently lost their ability to work will not be forgotten as well. Now they receive compensations calculated by the rate set at the moment of injury, for example, 10 years ago. At the same time, it is hard to say how many of them there will be in 5 years.
The issue of the permanently injured employees is still under discussion, and everyone knows about it, including the government. The talks, however, take a long time to progress.
The report did not have any information about emergencies or known accidents, and it seems that the trade union is ready for another 5-year plan of victories and accomplishments.